What do evidence-based science? When do we want it? After peer review.
Good morning. This is Eddie Evans for Climate Deception Network. Today is Friday the 13th, August the 13th, 2021. Today I want to show a video of Al Gore where he talks about climate, ecology, and national defense. Three very important ideas these days. These are ideas that are not often thought about by the Republican Party. And before I go further, I should say that I'm neither a Democrat nor a Republican. And I'm not right and I'm not left, I'm ahead. And that's just the way it is here in the real world. I will show a video by Maggie Thatcher, one of my heroes when it comes to politics and climate change. She got a lot of right stuff said, and she also said some stuff that didn't pan out for her. Well, that's a subject for another time. The IPCC report is that, and it's code red for Mother Earth. And what's going on is, according to IPCC and most science, is that human activity is changing the climate in unprecedented and sometimes irreversible ways. A landmark study from the IPCC warns of increasingly extreme heat waves, droughts, and flooding, and a key temperature limit being broken in just over a decade. The report then is a code red for Mother Earth, according to the UN chief. Okay, who are you going to listen to these days? The people who talk the language of science or the people who talk nonsense ideology? It's up to you. One thing's for certain, if we're going to have a seventh generation for humanity, at least habitat for humanity, we have to talk about science, real science, not superstition, not magical thinking.
Well, the phrase national security has been reserved for military threats, and Dr. Matthews was discussing this a moment ago, threats that reach to our ultimate security and our existence. And yet our national security is threatened more by environmental problems today than by military threats. And so in a political context, it is useful to think about this as a national security issue. Now, in military terms, we're used to thinking of local conflicts, regional conflicts, and global or strategic conflicts. It's useful to think about the environment in the same way. We have local water pollution problems, local air pollution problems. We have regional pollution problems like acid rain, which extends over wide areas. And now we have global or strategic problems affecting the environment. Global warming, the deterioration of the ozone layer, the loss of the rainforest, and the others. So that's one change I'd make. But I think that the real change in thinking that's even more fundamental has to do with how we see ourselves in relationship to the earth. The Judeo-Christian religious tradition, for example, talks about, in the book of Genesis, humankind being given dominion over the earth. But then, in the next phrase, we are given the responsibility of stewardship over the earth. For a long time, we've emphasized the idea of exercising dominion, subduing the earth. And for a long time, we've seen ourselves as separate from the earth, entitled to exploit it without really thinking much about the consequences. I think the change we need is a much greater emphasis on stewardship, on taking care of the earth, and on seeing ourselves as a part of the web of life. The percentage of salt in our bloodstreams is exactly the same as the percentage of salt in the oceans. That's not an accident. When we spread pesticides indiscriminately, it shows up in breast milk. When we poison the groundwater, it gets into our tissues. What we do to the earth, we do to ourselves. And in order to heal the earth's environment, we really do have to look at every decision we make that affects the earth in terms of how it affects the entire web of life. And I think that change in thinking is really starting to take place.